us away.
I'm not going to accept that kind of continuation in comments from the Manchester United fans. I'm one of the best people in predicting, and I'm doing well, guys. I think we should blame Sosha for that. All right, thank you very much, Joel. We shall come back to you later for more of those comments that are coming through online. Now, like I said, we have different folks and different stakeholders that are joining us on the press box tonight. But I'll start off with the man who is joining me in studio right now, Mr. Ahmed Hussein, the publicist, the spokesperson, the mouthpiece of the biggest federation in Uganda with the most busy activities as well, FUFA. Good evening, Mr. Hussein.
Good evening once again. I'm glad to be on the show.
Fantastic, fantastic having you on the show. Look, I feel we have so much to talk about, but because we have an action-packed show, which is the reason you will not see us talk about Manchester United and the Premier League, because the show is very busy, very, very busy. We have other things we are trying to put in. I want us to start here locally in Uganda. COVID, FUFA, and football in this country. It's been a sad time.
Yes, just allow me before I can get on to that question. I think, is it a coincidence that the three of you, the two Andrews and Mark, have not talked about a certain team? Of what exactly happened? Well, let's get back to the big question. Yes, time management. Of course, a lot of activities happening at the Federation, especially the off-season. Unfortunately, the off-season started a bit early, late March. Should have started maybe at the end of June, because we should have had also the Uganda Cup final played in the month of June. And it has been busy for us. We've got what you call the on-field activities and off-the-pitch activities. So we've been keeping so busy with activities off the pitch, and that in terms of management and administration, and also preparing for the new season. The new season started on 1st of July, especially when the transfer season was opened, and which closes tonight in about 1.5 hours' time. Okay. Uganda, of course, ends on 21st of September, especially for the professional leagues. So it has...
I mean, every young sports journalist who is my age in this country must know a thing or two about Ahmed Hussein. When some of us were growing up, when I just arrived in Kampala, I was always listening to updates on Sanyu FM. And this is the man who, in so many ways, really inspired me to become a sports journalist. That has been a long time now, Hussein.
Yes.
You're done with radio. You've gone into administration. Maybe something for the journalists out there. How has the transformation been?
Sanyu FM is my home, I should admit, because we grew the brand together, myself and the institution. Yes. I've got to thank Mr. Azim Tarani, the MD, Betsy Mugamba, my former general manager, and then the news editor, Linda Chibombo, who is at NTV here. It was such an institution that was so lovely. Even when you made mistakes, they would come and pat on your back and tell you, please, you can make it better. Of course, I've got memories from Sanyu FM. My dream was to cover the Olympic Games and the World Cup as a journalist, which I did. It was fantastic for me. I saw some of the guys, Mark Sal, I think, at the World Cup, Mark Namanya, Dennis Junior Sembata, who were with them at the World Cup in South Africa. Then the Olympic Games was a pinnacle for me, seeing Kiprotich. I was with the Katende. Yes. I remember Norman Katende. Yes. Kiprotich, of course, winning the marathon, on the same flight back with him. So it was marvelous for me as a journalist. So I should say that Sanyu FM is my home. I've not been there since I left, 2013. Yes. But of course, with time, I'll create it and make sure I get there. And of course, because the young journalists.
I mean, there's a bigger paycheck in Mengo than on
It's not a bigger paycheck. Of course, sometimes you need to create that distance and the gap, let the people work, because they don't want to see you, of course, get back to your former employers. But like I've said, those three people I've mentioned, they played a big role in my life. Okay. Even if Ismail Sembata. So the young journalists, definitely. Of course, we built a reputation during that generation. We learned from some of the senior journalists who were existing then. Mark Sally, one of them. Alan Sekamate, one of those. Louis Jadong. Aldrin Subuga. Then there was Kato at Bukede. So those are some of the senior journalists that would call and consult. Working in a period that sometime in 2001, internet was a problem. I'm lucky that I was at an institution where there was internet. There were very few media houses that had internet that time. But you'll have colleagues from different media houses calling you, hey, Ahmed, could you help me with some stories? So you actually had the liberty to decide which stories to pass on to your colleagues.
So you're working for about 10 radio stations at once?
Of course, how to extend a helping hand to our colleagues. Yes, so it was fun for us. and going out also getting what we call the sound bites. That was authenticity.
Yes, absolutely.
Either you've talked to the person or you've not. They always told us that if not talk to the person, please do not run the story. You either have to talk, because radio is about sound.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the sound, it's going to be difficult for even people to believe in you. Yes.
And that's grew well. Well, I must thank you, my man. Thank you very much for inspiring us. We have tried. Now you see we are here. We are trying now to grow as sports journalists.
I'll wait for my paycheck, of course, when I extremely grow.
It will be coming very soon. Look, I want to join the other folks who are joining us online. I don't know if we have everyone yet. We have the AIGP, Mr. Hassan Kasinje, who is also the chairman at Police Football Club. And of course, on the other hand, we should be having Mr. Nasa Serunjoji, who is the football president. There they are, joining us on set for tonight. And we should also be later on joined by Mr. Dr. Patrick Ogwell, who is the Secretary General of the National Council of Sports. Gentlemen, good evening, and once again, a pleasure having you on the press box tonight. I'll start off with Afande. For starters, Afande, before we talk about the resumption for sport, I must say, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, I'm asking that because of what has been going on in your own life. The pandemic that is Corona has hit the entire world, and you have seen the ugliest side of it. Now you're safe. I think before we talk about sport, let's talk about your experience. Do people know what COVID really is, and do they know how much it can affect a human being? Are we taking it serious?
Unfortunately, Andrew, we're not taking it serious. I am sorry that I'm among the 5,000 at that time when I was affected. And what I went through up to the time I was discharged from hospital, and even immediately after, even now I'm still getting stigmatized, is not what I would wish anybody, any Ugandan to go through. Because I first of all took 1 week of pain, and I didn't know what I was going through, what I was suffering from. Ping pong, coming back, in clinics and getting some treatment, and everything was not doing. I was not doing well. And then I was supposed to. I'm on the task force for COVID-19, the Interforces Task Force. And we're supposed to actually meet at Prime Minister's office, and later on to another office I won't mention here. But I was supposed to get a COVID-19 clearance that I was negative for me to be able to participate. The results came back on a Sunday. I was coming from treatment, and bang, I was told, unfortunately, I was COVID-19 positive. A week before, I think 5 days before, I had tested and I was negative. By this time, I was positive, which means anybody can pick this deadly disease anywhere at any point of time. I was supposed to be hospitalized at least a maximum of 14 days, but it was not possible, Andrew, because I'm diabetic, if I can say it here, and it took time for me to heal. People think this is a joke. This is not a joke. Being alone, being quarantined, I used to call it quarantine until when I had the minister saying quarantine. Then the family, friends and work and my work, all these come, in the hospital, and they even raise anxiety. Immediately you do this, you also, jeopardize your healing process. But Andrew, inside there, I tested 4 times. I mentioned twice.
Okay.
But to be exact, I did 4 times, and all of them came positive until the last one, which was negative, and I was discharged. So that is the kind of situation that we go through. And I see young people saying that there is no COVID. It is just Senegal. It is just, a flu which we normally suffer from. People need to go through this. I don't want them to go through this, but what I went through, this is not a joke. People, be serious. I'm not playing around. I'm a very senior citizen, a senior police officer. This is not a joke. My family went through so much. People, put on your masks. This is bad business.
Yeah, absolutely. Afande, first of all, I must say, I'm happy you're fine. I'm happy you're healthy now. and I'm also happy for your family that you're back to full health. But then, with what
Yes.
you've gone through in relation to the resumption of sport in this country, you must be worried. You must be worried. Are we going to follow the regulations to make sure we don't have active footballers out there, basketballers, golf players go through this? Because you must be worried that now everything is open.
Yes, definitely. When I got affected, I began to get worried of so many things. Because in our language, we say once you are bitten by a snake, you even fear the holes, the holes where you suspect a snake can come from. Now, yesterday, when I heard, of course, the president discussing issues about sport, definitely, 3 issues for me came out. Number one is the open sporting activities, which I support 100%.
Okay.
And the president was spot on, because with COVID, we need to observe social distance, and the only way you can observe social distance, at least with football, which I'm part of, is to watch from TV, is to watch from afar, from a distance. Yes, we can miss, that kind of, stadium, the kind of stadium aura, where, people shout and say nasty words to each other. These are the things that really make people like sport, because if I sit and watch and I'm not challenged, when I'm watching English Premier League, I am thinking about Andrew because I know he's on the other side and on this side, you know, that kind of thing. But open sporting activities where we are going to watch from afar, that one I support. We need to do it even in other sports, in boxing, weather athletics and other sporting activities. That one I support.
Okay.
Secondly, is about the need to test twice, 14 days, once in a fortnight, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And yes. And for me, I think I have an issue there. I support I understand what government is trying to come up with, and I support it that we should know the COVID-19 status of our players. However, there is a challenge, and the challenge is about clubs. I'm the chairman of one of those 16 UPL clubs. Now, testing is going to be private. We are going to pay privately.
Yes.
And government has set a fee of 300,000. If you go to Lancet, is it Lancet or Lancet? Lancet.
Yeah.
Which does private testing for COVID-19, I think it can go up to 450. Now, let's take 300,000. We are required to have about 25 people on the bench. I mean, the bench including the players who are going to play. That means you are going to have 18 players, and you're also going to have officials, technical staff, and the total is 25. Now, if you pay 30,000, that means you are going to have about 7.5 million in terms of tests alone. And if you are going to do this twice in a month, that means, and then multiply by the number of months, which is a season is 12 months.
Yeah.
Andrew, that means each club is going to fork 180 million Uganda shillings. Did you know that Ugandan clubs in a month, some of them survive on something like 30 million,
Absolutely.
40 million?
Absolutely.
Now you're talking about 180 million shillings. I think some of the clubs are going to pull out. Where are they going to get the money? Remember, Andrew, the spectators or the fans are not going in the stadiums.
Yes.
So you are not even going to get corrections. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, and I believe some of the clubs have sponsors. Of course, there is HIMA, there is Star Times. I can mention here police.
Yeah.
We associate ourselves with Centenary Bank. and of course Shell, that is Vital Energy. Now, I don't know what is going to happen, but if a sponsor is not going to, funds are not going to be there, and then you are, I think this is likely to affect the business side, the business arm of the sport, which is actually the air we breathe, the oxygen we breathe, in as far as sport is concerned.
Okay.
The third one is about what they call camp quarantine. I didn't get it well, but camp quarantine means probably as you are going to play within that fortnight, within the 14, the way I understand it, the 14 days when you test, the players are not supposed to go home. The players are supposed to remain within the camp. And that means each club is going to fork money, more money for feeding, for accommodation, and for people who clean the places and all that kind of thing. Now, I anticipate that within the fortnight, the 14 days, a club is going to have an additional expenditure of something like 20 million, 30 million.
Absolutely.
Now, if you add it on the 180 million, it goes to about 230 million shillings. Where does this money come from? I hope, since you have Hussein, probably he can tell us, is FUFA coming in? Is it National Council of Sports? Who? Because these clubs are not going to play unless this is assured.
I found it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I want to come back to you very, very shortly. Please allow me to go to the FUBA president for now. Please stay online for us very shortly. Let me cross over to the FUBA president, Mr. Nasser Serunjoji now. Good evening, Nasser, and welcome to the press box tonight. I mean, good news coming through then from State House, the president saying sport should resume. The basketball fans in the country are very, very excited. Are you as excited? Is it feasible, my friend?
Good evening, Andrew, and thank you for hosting me this evening. I should say that I'm excited and not excited at the same time, because this appears like giving you with the right hand and taking away with the left hand.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe to explain a bit more about that, as Afande Kasinje has put it correctly. You see, when it comes to the issue of testing, I know that, for the safety of our players and, the technical staff and all that, there is need for testing. That is a must. There are no two ways about that. But at the end of the day, you ask yourself, for example, in basketball, how many clubs can afford that?
Yeah.
If you have a team of 12 players, and then you have 2 coaches, you have a medical, you have a physio, you have a contingent of about 16, 17 people. Now, if you're going to spend about 300,000 on each of those times 17 people in every fortnight, I mean, how many clubs can afford that in basketball? You know that clubs struggle a lot. They don't even have sponsors and all that. So for me, it's like, allowing you to play sports, but at a very high cost, which you can't afford. And at the end of the day, you're going to just give up on it.
But Nasser, it's even worse for you because it's supposed to be open air, just like you said in there. It means we actually can't use Lugogo Indoor Stadium. We have to go to YMCA. I mean, the last time you were on the show, we discussed the state of the facility there. And now that you can't even have fans in, it's getting tighter for you, my friend.
Exactly. That's also the other point, because if you say that you cannot play indoors, then it becomes a problem. As you know, basketball is ideally an indoor sport. But again, for me, I don't understand the logic behind not playing indoors, because if you say that people should test before, then if all the people inside the arena, the players and their technical staff have been tested and they are negative, then you have all these SOPs of social distancing, you have sanitizers and everything, then why not play indoors? Because if you have tested negative, then who is going to spread the virus to the other? For me, it doesn't make sense.
Okay, I mean, I appreciate that, Nasa. I'll come to you very shortly because I want us to talk about the expense as well. I want us to talk about these players. Very shortly, I'll come to you. You know what? Let's do this. Let's replay what the president actually said. So whoever is watching the press box tonight, in case you missed the president's address, you can figure out what the whole story is. Here is the president.
Activities of sports will reopen, provided there are no spectators. We must learn to have games without spectators, without abatunurizi, abarorezi. We shall watch on TV. The teams can play, we watch from far. And the players, provided the players are tested for COVID-19 72 hours before. This test will expire in 14 days. So every 14 days they must test the players. Hence the sportsmen will have to repeat the test. Sportsmen and women should remember that masks should not be worn when you are engaged in strenuous exercises. B, with tournaments, teams should be quarantined for the whole season of the competition. C, indoor sports activities, including gyms.
Well, there you go. That is the President of the Republic of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, speaking about the resumption of sport yesterday. And you know, those of us who love sport, we are very excited. But it's expensive now. It's very expensive. I don't know how visible is it. Ahmed Hussein is here, the spokesperson of FUFA. You just listened to Mr. Hassan Kasinje talking about how expensive it's going to be. Maybe I should start here. Is FUFA coming in to help these clubs in terms of subsidize the fee for testing? You heard those figures. Those figures are crazy, Ahmed.
Well, it's huge figures. Definitely, of course, it's caring for anyone who wants to invest in the game at this particular time. I can feel the pain, the club officials, the club owners, and the people who are financing these teams. It's not affecting only those who are injecting money, but the players also, of course. I'm sure they must be sympathizing with the officials because they know health is very important and they want to play the game. There was a lot of excitement, rather anxiety. Then excitement came in when the announcement was made. But of course, it was expected that the fans would not be allowed. And as you're very much aware that most of the clubs in Ugandan football make their money, especially when they're hosting home games. You'd find Vipers, you'd find KCC Football Club, maybe Villa, Busoga United, Ondu Paraka, making some good money when they're hosting games at their respective home grounds. It becomes difficult, especially for the teams that are struggling to have the funds, if they don't have a strong fan base when you're hosting matches. So first of all, those are the clubs that are going to be affected. But I'm sure those clubs that I've mentioned are not looking at the gate collections. It's going to be, of course, like a bonus for them to have the funds into the stadium. The beauty of having the funds in the stadium. Now, the figures themselves is FUFA coming in. Football is a team sport. The team sport, of course, does not stop at people looking at FUFA alone. We've got different stakeholders, the internal and external. We've got the media. We've got the sponsors who are coming in. We've got the government. We've got the medical personnel, the National Council of Sports. As FUFA, of course, we are going to meet National Council of Sports, the Minister of Education and Sports, Minister of Health, the National COVID-19 Task Force. One is to find modalities on what exactly the testing is all about. His Excellency talked about the tournament because we know that it's easier for a tournament against the league. Now, Mr. Kasinje's concern is about the league that runs from October, which is tentative 17th October, until the following year, around May or June. It's expensive, definitely. You may not do that. How can we beat around that? How do we take the whole decision on making sure that the league matches go on? It's the premier tournament. It's a premier competition in Uganda that's run by FUFA, rather by the Uganda Premier League, and then FUFA also supporting. Is FUFA coming in to support? Definitely. FUFA will have to come in. But how do we do that? It's engagement of the different stakeholders. we shouldn't be pessimistic right now. We have to be optimistic to make sure that we are not negative at the moment. Let's look at how we come over this, because everyone wants the games to be played. Basketball wants the games to be played. Futsal, as of I speak now, they are affected. How can we have the closed door games as well coming? So the support definitely will come in, but then what is the involvement of other stakeholders? Can we have the test subsidies? If the government also has been doing it for different people, why not for the sports industry? The sports industry now needs the government more than ever in this particular period. We tell them, look, the calculations you've had, 210 million shillings. Mr. Kasinje is coming from a government institution funded club. Yeah. But if he's also making the cries right now, what do you expect from a private club? That's on maybe Bright Stars, Busoga United, and so many other institutions. Yeah. So it's going to be extremely difficult. So subsidizing, of course, is getting to talking to the different stakeholders.
We shall come talk to that very shortly. I want to cross once again to Mr. Hassan Kasinje. Here is my issue. I first of all find the president's statement not very clear in terms of league and tournament. I know Sen is talking about league and tournament here. But in my own understanding, the Uganda Premier League is really a tournament, because what is going to happen is Police Football Club is going to travel to 8 different stadiums across the country, and when the players come back to town, they will go back to their homes. So we cannot quarantine the team throughout the campaign. So the whole tournament and league issue actually doesn't count. If police is to play across the country, the players have got to stay in camp, which is even more expensive. Oh, I think he went off? Okay, he went off. Let me quickly cross over to NASA. I'll come back to that very shortly. If NASA is still with us online. NASA, same issue really. It has nothing to do with league or tournament. These players are going to travel to different grounds and they will have to return to their homes. So as the basketball boss, when you're looking at the budget, teams actually must stay in camp the whole season. Is that feasible again?
Yeah, Andrew, it's going to be a very tight situation, but I would agree with what Hussein was proposing. If a government at least can come in to subsidize the cost of the testing, or even offer testing for free, then it's going to be very easy for us to resume the sports activities. I think this is the time that government at least should come in and support sports. If at all they've been able to test other people, they've been testing the truck drivers and all those, then why not our athletes to be tested to allow us to resume sports? It's going to be very tricky. As basketball right now, probably what we are planning is to have shorter versions of the game, that is the 3-on-3, because this involves very few players. The team would need probably 4 players. There is no coach and no other technical staff is needed there. Ideally, that's probably the teams who would afford the testing for that. But again, we shall have to meet with the teams and see whether they can afford it. Because for us to resume any sports activities, it's going to depend on whether the teams can afford the testing cost or not.
Yeah, but NASA, on the other side, apart from what the president has said and what the moves moving forward are going to be, we're also talking about a sports industry that is not specifically paying much money to the players. You and I have discussed this on the press box before. The basketball players in this country are not earning that much money. We are now in a situation where they haven't played sport for long, so they haven't earned a single coin from their clubs, or not that much. They have other jobs. So don't you think we are going to have so many dropouts? Because now players are wondering, do I go back into this bubble where there is no money, or do I continue with my day job? So we are in trouble of losing some superstars.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right, Andrew. Because when for example, if you say that sports is resuming without funds, it is understandable that at the moment you can't have fans or spectators. But also this is one of the avenues that brings in money that helps some of these clubs to survive. So you wonder that most of the clubs that are not sponsored, where are they going to get the money to pay these players? But at the end of the day, I know that, for example, in basketball, there are players who would love to play, at least to play some basketball, even with some little money coming in. They just want to be active. They miss the game. They just want to play the game. So for them, ideally, some of them, money would be secondary, because their priority is to get back to playing the game that they love very much.
Okay, Nasa, before I let you go, because I want to let you go, way forward, what do you think is going to be, I mean, what is the general reaction from FUBA at the moment? Maybe not get back because it looks expensive at the moment.
Of course, we are excited that sports is resuming, but of course we have to weigh our options and meet with our members. These are the teams to see whether they can afford this. It's all going to depend upon them. If they really think that they can afford this, then definitely we shall have something. But as you're well aware, we cancelled our league, and we are not about to resume our league until next year, sometime in March. But we plan to have some activities between now and before the end of the year, if the teams can afford the cost, if government comes in probably to subsidize the cost of testing, then we shall have some activities between now and before the end of the year.
Nasa Serunjoji, President FUBA, asante sana. Thank you very much for joining us once again, my friend. And we do hope the activities can come back. Ahmed, there you go. In this context, there's no difference between a league and a tournament.
I think for the benefit of our viewers, there is a big difference. For a tournament, it can easily be managed, especially when you're going to put them in one place.
Okay.
Maybe FUFA Technical Center. There's likely to be a tournament. Usually our football tournaments do not go beyond 2 weeks. So by the time you need the second test, maybe some of the teams have been knocked out. So it could be a bit slightly easier.
Okay.
Just like we're going to have our playoffs, the FUFA Big League, the Women Elite League playoffs, the Regional League playoffs, it might be a bit easier. The biggest challenge is from a league that of course will move from October into the following year, around May. So how do we handle? After every 2 weeks, you need another test.
Yes.
And that's why we're saying that government maybe need to come in here and maybe save the situation, or else you're going to see teams knocking themselves out even before the tournament kicks off, especially if such restrictions. Because we are glad the games are going to be are resuming.
Yes.
But now the cost that comes along, because we expected all this. Now it was better for us, is to welcome the games, the resumption of the games, and then look at what exactly they need with the SOPs. But it's not going to be FUFA alone doing this job, to talk to the stakeholders.
Yeah, because I mean, in Europe there's a bubble. Teams have a bubble around them.
Yes.
From their training to the travel to how the matches go and after. So FUFA alone cannot control the bubble.
You can't. But even the foreign teams, they were talking about teams in Europe, of course the money that gets into the games and their sports is huge.
Yeah.
And you can see even the TVs are not going to show the games. There's someone that is going from the clubs and get back to, and that money will get back to the teams to make sure that they sponsor some of the things.
Here's an interesting one. I was listening to an exclusive, well, I shouldn't say exclusive, big interview from Jonathan McKinstry on FUFA.com, and he was FUFA.co.ug. Let me make that very clear.
Yes.
That is the official FUFA website. And he was talking about how most of the foreign best players now can't come in. He will only use, I think, about 70% of the foreign best players he would have wanted in camp. Give us a quick update as Ugandans. What is happening with the Uganda Cranes? We have action in November, and now with the resumption, it looks good, but we are still talking COVID.
Yes, the national team, of course, is going to be camped in Dubai, and it's a best central location for the players. Most of the bulk of the team actually is coming from the foreign basic countries. There are about 17 countries from which we pick our national team players, the senior team, the Uganda Cranes. So when we had the plans to have the camp in Dubai and also play a friendly match that will be confirmed during that period for the 9 days from 7th around the 19th. Okay. So it gives us that opportunity as well. The testing, of course, is going to be much easier in Dubai and faster, but then also it is paid for by the institution that is FUFA. Okay. But of course, thanks to the government, that also gives us the 10 billion shillings towards the Uganda Cranes. So some of the players here, of course, also have to go a test, the COVID-19 test, before they fly out of the country, and then also have 3 days, that is 72 hours, before they fly to Dubai to make sure they have another test done and confirmation with the certificate, such that they leave Entebbe Airport, Dubai International Airport, and also present their certificates.
Okay.
Yes.
All that will be in a bubble.
Will be in the bubble, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Mr. Hassan Kasinje, Afande joins me once again. I had just one more, or I should say 2 questions before you can go, Afande.
Yes, Andrew.
We have been living in a football world where well, apart from police and the government parastatals, where different clubs even struggle with salaries of their own players, allowances of these players, water at training grounds. Now, the clubs are not earning money, just like you said. The resumption of sport is exciting us, but we've talked about the problems that is going to come with. And I don't want to pitch you against your boss, my friend. I don't want it to get political on air tonight. But maybe we shouldn't resume, because what are the chances every club in the Uganda Premier League, for example, is going to adhere to this and we shall go out there and play?
Yes, Andrew, you're very correct. And no, this is not anything about me and the boss. You see, in sports, we are also doing government work. If you're going to get the Joshua Cheptegeis, the Kiprimos and of this world, then you must have people go into camps, train and play the leagues, in football and that kind of thing. So I think what my colleagues and I are doing right now is to ensure that we look for better options where sports can resume. And at the end of the day, it's the country that is going to benefit from this. You're right that we spend much more than what people think. It's very, very expensive to run a Premier League club. Salaries alone, technical staff can go up to, let me say this, in police we go up to around 13 million per month on technical staff alone. These are about 5-6 people. When you look at the players, there are players who earn about 5 million, Andrew. There are players who earn 3 million. It depends on what we agreed with them in their contract. Now, if you don't get money at the gates, you don't receive money from sponsors. With the COVID-19 situation, it is all understood. We know what it is all about. Then it means even paying of salaries is going to be a little bit problematic. So we need to balance this. Andrew, for me, I really request that government can waive the COVID-19 testing fees from the 16 Premier League clubs, instead of us paying 300,000 per person. Government can help us and come and test these people once in a fortnight. And then probably we can have, like Hussein was saying, we can have a cohort of certain teams that are going to play, let me say, in Nigeria. Not all of us can congregate there. We have maybe something like 8 teams going and play a fortnight and 8 teams playing another fortnight. Then these people can be tested from there, they play, and then they go on rest. You are not going to have a player for something like 14 days in a camp. It is going to affect his psychology, it is going to, his family is aware, it is going to affect them. They are not going to play like they normally play. So for me, my request is government could waive off the testing fees. They can come and take the samples from our players, and the clubs do not. This could be part of the government bargaining into this, so that we can be able to participate properly within this COVID-19 period.
AIGP, first of all, thank you very much for joining us on the press box tonight. I want to appreciate your time. I also want to thank you. I really want to thank you for the service to the nation and, of course, sport. And I wish you all the best. I'm happy you're healthy.
Yes. One thing, Andrew.
Okay.
Can I say this?
Yes, please.
I request that this time around we have a team of psychosocial support to the teams. Why I'm saying this, Andrew, we are likely to get some players that turn out COVID-19 positive. So it shouldn't be a matter of taking players, then test them, and then you tell them that you are positive. I know what I went through. I can be used as a very good example. I'm ready to do this free of charge for any team, for whatever. So that if somebody is found COVID-19 positive, then they are cancelled. There is psychosocial support. You know, they have their family. Probably their families are going to be picked and taken to hospitals. You are not going to have a player, even if he's not going to play because he will be taken to quarantine. What about his colleagues? Most of these players are like, they are like a small family. Once their colleague is going through traumatic experience, it is going to affect the play. So we need even to cancel the other players in lieu of the fact that one of them is found positive. If it is one of the technical staff, then we also need to cancel them. I'm requesting, Andrew, that if there is anybody from the National Council of Sports hearing what I have said, and FUFA, of course, the spokesperson is there, this matter should be taken seriously and factor it in when we resume the league.
Mr. Kasinja, Ahmed Hussein says he's your man, he's your very good friend. You guys will have a phone conversation as the week goes on to make sure this is cleared.
Sir.
They were talking about government coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Afande. They were talking about government coming in and helping with the subsidizing. That is a very good move. But I mean, same question I asked Afande. Are we too early? Have we opened this up too early? Because these players are going to travel across the country. And that's my second last question to you, boss.
I think like the decision was taken by the government, and His Excellency, of course, did say, if you look at, we're having the elections next year. They said they're going to be scientific elections. Yeah. So the chances are that even sport would resume, of course, under strict conditions. So whether it is too early or not, I think for me this was the best time to have the announcement received by the different stakeholders so that people get prepared. Now, we're getting the reactions, we're getting the ideas, and we're taking this as serious as anything that would want to make sure that football is played on the pitch, but of course with less expenses. Less expenses might mean as well zero expenses by the clubs, by the institutions, and also the government coming in.
The clubs received some money from FIFA through FUFA, which even then looked a drop in the ocean. Now it looks a tiny drop in the ocean with what is coming up. Are we expecting more money from Mengo?
It was $500,000 that was shared amongst the stakeholders, and there is another batch of $500,000. Of course, the executive will sit and make sure that they see how best that money can be used. Definitely, that money has to get into football. We want football to keep running, football to keep alive, and that's our main motive, because there's no need of me being at FUFA offices and football is not played. Absolutely. Because competitions are the heartbeat of every institution, especially football.
Okay, finally, there's been a very big question happening on social media since the NRM primaries across the country, because the FUFA president, Engineer Moses Magogo, did win his, and that means he'll be running for member of parliament in the next, parliament of this country. And that has brought question marks. Guys are saying, then will he have time to run the federation? Of course, I'm hoping Engineer Moses Magogo goes to parliament, but does that mean we have started our early search for a new FUFA president?
The search for the new FUFA president, of course, people can make wishes. You can have plans, but Engineer Moses Magogo has got 1 year, I think, and 2 months or 3 to complete his second term of office. Of course, the big debate is, can he handle 2 offices?
Yes.
I think so, he can. He's very much capable. The systems at FUFA allow everyone apparently to run the institution in their respective departments. Even the executive that he believes in so much can do that. Okay. Because I know there are people who are holding different and strong positions in the country here, and they're running more than 2 offices, ably running them. So I don't think it's going to be difficult for him, especially with the governance system that is at FUFA. It's going to be easy for him.
Okay. Yes. Ahmed Hussein, I must thank you, man. Thank you very much for getting some time and dropping by. We are live from the Kampala Serena Hotel, and of course proudly powered by DSTV. Now I want us to quickly move on to what is happening in the Premier League, specifically from the weekend. But Dr. Patrick Ogwell, the National Council of Sports General Secretary, there he is. He's finally joined us after quite a while. It seems he's been up and down. Doctor, good evening and welcome to the press box.
Good evening.
I did introduce you as Mr. and Mark Sally said I must include the word doctor, so I'm hoping my introduction is a little bit more respectful this evening.
For me, so long as my name appears, Ogwell, Patrick, Bernard, it's enough. The other one is just for purposes of convenience, but apologies received.
No, thank you very much, my brother. Now, you've really found us wrapping the topic. I don't know if you've been following the discussion.
I have been following you very well.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to speak because there were very profile people who had the issues to discuss in this.
Yes, well, I really want a comment or two from you. I mean, sport is back. We are happy. You've had Ahmed Hussein, you've had Afande Hassan Kasinje, you've had Mr. Nasser Serunjoji. They're all worried about the testing that is going to be very expensive. Some people are worried if the SOP is actually going to be followed. As the man who is the Secretary General to the organization responsible for all these federations in the country, how did you receive this news? And do you have any worry?
I want to first thank NTV for this very important and very, very critical matter that is for the development of our subsector, the sports. The news definitely is welcomed. This has been long overdue because the international space elsewhere has been relaxed, and we had expected this to come slightly maybe a month ago. But nevertheless, we are very grateful to His Excellency the President and the government for giving us green light to resume. I want to just give assurance that where there is a green light, definitely there will be provision to ensure that we resume our games. We note that our government is passionate about development of sports. Even in the COVID period, Mr. Kabura, you note that government was able to clear our athletes, the Joshuas, the Kiplimus, behind the sidelines, and they were able to participate. And some of these are now very, very hot news in the world over that were broken world record in the COVID period. Now that the green light is given, we expect the key issues that has been raised in the SOP demand by government to be implemented. We are going to have a meeting with all the 51 national sports federations, but as you note, this is going to be seriously regulated. The national sports federations have to tighten their belts to ensure that the issue of compliance is adhered to, and it will be a case-by-case situation. We assume that there are federations who are organized and ready to start with us. We would start with those ones. But we shall give chance to each and every national sports federation to showcase their ability, their readiness to reopen. When it comes to issue of testing, which I think has been a topical issue in the whole resumption debate, we hope that this is a matter we will be able to consult, and definitely we know we shall be able to push forward. If we cannot get a way forward to allow, in the first place, national teams and maybe the leagues, the clubs to be tested by government, we will lobby for money, because all this, as you said, is a directive. Either way, we have to test our players if we are to resume. So definitely we must engage the other technocrats in government, and we hope this will be accepted. The other issue of national team players, definitely it is a directive. We have to ensure that the venues are designated for their training. The camp is also designated and known. And at the end of the day, we are working with a scientific team from government. We hope that the issue of compliance will be detailed, and National Council of Sports and the federations have to play a key role in ensuring that we don't put the lives of our athletes, even our officials, at risk. So my promise to all Ugandans is that we shall sit together and agree on some of this going forward.
Okay, Mr. Gold, thank you very much, my brother. I really think you came, we don't have time tonight, but I really would want you to come to studio one of these days so we can have a longer discussion, and it will be such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much, my good friend, Mr. Mangusha. I know this is an issue for all of us, but
Okay, asante sana. There you go. Joel, I think we should quickly cross over to what is happening in the Premier League. I don't know if I have Mark Sully and Andrew Mwangusha on the line with me right now to have a quick run through what specifically happened in the Premier League.